Thank you very much for joining us on News Now on TV360 Nigeria. I am Esther Vese. 3 persons have died after a boat carrying 20 passengers capsized between Liverpool and Coconut Underbridge in Lagos. The General Manager of the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, Adesina Tiamiyu, who confirmed the incident, says the rescue teams are still searching for 5 other missing passengers. He also notes that 12 passengers were rescued alive, while the dead persons have been taken to the State Environmental Health Monitoring Unit to be deposited at the morgue. The Nigerian army says its troops have repelled a Boko Haram attack in Yobe State. The army says the troops repelled an attempted invasion by the insurgents at Kadgako, about 41 kilometers north of Buni Yadi in Yobe State. The army says extra forces have been deployed to the area to avert another attack. A spokesman, Brigadier General Jude Chukwu, also says that the situation has been brought under control. Chukwu notes that the troops are currently in pursuit of fleeing terrorists, but urged Yobe residents in general and Kadgako in particular to go about their legitimate businesses and report any suspicious activities or movement in their area to law enforcement agents or for prompt action. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari is assuring that his government is working to solve the country's security challenges. Buhari told members of the African Parliamentary Union that he is bothered about the killings of Nigerians and is working hard to stop it. This next report has the rest of the details.
It is the 73rd session of the Executive Committee and the 41st Conference of Speakers of the African Parliamentary Union. This year's session, holding in Abuja, focuses on fostering relations between African countries. It is also on that subject that the President of the Nigerian Senate, Bukola Saraki, begins his address to the Parliament.
Seeing you all here today, eminent parliamentarians from all over Africa, I'm even more convinced of the need for fora such as the African Parliamentary Union Conference. Without doubt, we as legislators need to do a lot more to share ideas and work together to devise new and effective strategies for addressing the many challenges confronting our continent.
Nigeria President Muhammadu Buhari also addresses the session. He highlights the security challenges facing the West African region and what has been done to combat those challenges, especially in Nigeria.
Here in Nigeria, we have done a lot to reverse the terror trend and hold the advancement of Boko Haram. We have, in collaboration with our neighbors, strengthened our armed forces to effectively confront terror groups and have also initiated programs to address widespread poverty, which has been identified as a significant factor fueling unrest and boosting terror recruitment. In spite of this progress, we are not unmindful of the remaining challenges of armed invaders who ransack villages and small farming communities and commit terrible acts, including the cold-blooded murder of women and children. We are also making progress in addressing this challenge.
The 41st Conference of the African Parliamentary Union will end on November 9, 2018. Oyin Adekunle, TV360, Nigeria.
In the capital city, the Nigerian police is insisting there is no cover-up in the investigations into the invasion of the residence of the Deputy Senate President, Ike Ekweremadu. Police spokesman Jimoh Moshood is pleading for patience from the Senate leader as it continues its investigation. Moshood, however, maintained that preliminary investigations show that it is only a case of burglary and not an assassination attempt. He says further interrogation of one of the suspects shows he was not even armed with a firearm during the robbery attempt. Moshood also says the suspect confessed that he did not know that the house belonged to the Deputy Senate President. He also says four police personnel and one personnel of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps on duty at the residence of the Deputy Senate President at the time of the incident have been arrested and are still in detention. And President Muhammadu Buhari has declared a state of emergency on Nigeria's water supply, sanitation and hygiene sector. The president made the declaration at the ceremony to inaugurate the National Action Plan for Revitalization of the Water Supply, Sanitation and Hygiene sector at the State House Conference Center. Now, he has directed government at all levels to redouble efforts and work towards meeting the nation's water supply and sanitation needs. Tunji has the rest of the story.
In 2015, the United Nations noted that countries where open defecation is practiced are the same countries with the highest levels of poverty, wealth disparity, and under 5 child mortality. Presently, more than 50 million Nigerians still practice open defecations, and less than 60% Nigerians have access to clean potable water. Definitely, this is an emergency situation.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor and privilege to launch the National Action Plan for Revitalization of Water Supply, Sanitation sector of our country. It is also my singular honor to formally declare a state of emergency on Nigeria's water supply, sanitation and hygiene sector. Henceforth, federal government support to state governments will be based on their commitment to implement the national water supply, sanitation, and action plan in their respective states and to end open defecation by 2025.
62 million Nigerians were yet to meet the MDG water supply indicators. This is the water supply situation. But if we go by the Sustainable Development Target, which is that we must have improved access to water supply located on premises, available when needed, and free from fecal and chemical contamination, we'll see that 185 million Nigerians are off that target now, at present.
All available statistics from the Federal Ministry of Water Resources, development partners in water and sanitation, experts all show that Nigeria needs an urgent solution to the challenges posed by lack and shortage of water to the vast majority of the population.
So I congratulate you on behalf of the Development Partners Group, Mr. President, for playing such a critical role in moving us towards achieving this milestone. As we've heard, there are millions of children who are affected every single day by the situation of water, sanitation, and hygiene across Nigeria. Indeed, tens of thousands are dying under the age of 5 from diarrhea, which is entirely preventable.
The action plan that has been launched by Mr. President today is not just a federal action plan, it is a national action plan. An action plan that was developed not only by federal government, but by state government's participation. Just like you heard, it's an action plan that emanated from the system. When we saw the statistics and we saw the problem that we had, bearing in mind that the access to water supply sanitation is declining everywhere, it was taken to the National Council of Water Resources, where a decision was made that we need to work together, the state and the federal government, local government, to develop a national action plan that will renew the partnership between federal, state, local government to collaborate, to work more, and also to put in development partners' efforts together towards increasing and improving access to water supply, sanitation, and hygiene in Nigeria.
There is a lot that needs to be done. We need to make sure that all the government, both from the federal government, the state, and the local government, that everybody is on board. But not just that. We also need to have civil society, the media, and people at the grassroots level. I mean, if we're in a war situation, the media will report what's happening every single day. That's the way we need to look at the situation with water and sanitation. It's a catastrophe. It's a crisis. We only 34% of Nigerians have access to toilets. A lot of us, over 100 million people, are openly defecating. This is a crisis, and I think that the government has done what it needs to do, to declare a state of emergency and to make sure that everybody recognizes that all hands have to be on deck, including the media.
With the formal launch of water supply, sanitation and hygiene by President Muhammadu Buhari, it is believed that more Nigerians will have access to potable water, which will improve their standard of living. From the State House in Abuja, Tunji Oye, TV360 News.
Nigeria may be closer to implementing a new minimum wage, but some governors are not happy with the way the agreement is being breached. Now, Kaduna State Governor Nasser El-Rufai has faulted the idea of a uniformed all-national minimum wage that was being determined by the federal government. He says each state should be allowed to peg its minimum wage according to the level of its income. El-Rufai is canvassing for a new review of the laws to allow states to determine what each should pay. Meanwhile, Governor Abdul Fattah Ahmed of Kwara State says it was clear that the new minimum wage was coming with an added responsibility, and the current revenue profile was not likely to take it on. Ahmed said it is necessary for all stakeholders in the governance of states to strike the necessary balance between economic and social cost of generating increased internal revenue through taxes, fees, levies, and fines. The immediate past chairman of the People's Democratic Party in Lagos State, Moshood Salvador, has been appointed as the Director General of the President's Support Committee for the Buhari Osinbajo 2019 campaign in Lagos. The appointment of Salvador, who is now a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, was conveyed in a letter from the presidency signed by retired Honorable Gideon Samani, Senior Special Assistant to the President in political matters. He has pledged to ensure the victory of the APC governorship candidate and the re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari.
APC has not even done to the maximum. Their capacity is more than what they are achieving. So I want to put all my expertise, all my experience, and all what I know to make sure they perform to the maximum level at the election. They are capable of having 2 million votes for their governors. Where they are having 794,000 votes is undervoting, underutilization of what they have. That is what I mean by that. So it is part of my assignment to make sure I strategize, I plan, I give them the good path of getting to that level of scoring up to 2 million votes for the governorship.
Meanwhile, an Igbo political group is demanding that the presidency rotates to the southeast in 2023. The President General of the group, John Uche, says the Igbo tribe is the most populated tribe in Nigeria and must be taken seriously. He warns that a 2023 presidency is not negotiable.
For Igbo to really believe that APC is not playing games with us, Professor Osinbajo, whom we now have any personal problem with, should be dropped. And he should pick, Mr. President should pick an Igbo man to make his running mate in 2019 elections. To assure us that 2023 will deliver. Now you're telling us that you will give the Igbo man tickets by 2023. How are you going to do it? Igbo man is not the vice president. He is not the Senate president. He is not the Speaker of the Federal House of Reps. Are you going to pick him from his bedroom?
A social worker and national coordinator of the Trauma Awareness and Resilience TAR initiative, Francis Onyekwe, has been speaking on some of the causes of depression in Nigeria. Onyekwe says mental disorders, including depression, are usually overlooked despite the fact that it constitutes a major health challenge in the country.
When somebody is depressed, there are tendencies of these suicidal thoughts or committing suicide. You understand? And when that happens, when it puts you in that depressive order, you are no longer productive. Those things you used to do, you are no longer interested in. In fact, to go to work, if you are somebody who is working, you may not be interested again. When they talk about your workplace, you get angry, you don't feel like going. So you find out that it will affect the economy one way or the other. You understand? Your productive level depreciates. So you can imagine if in a society or a community, half of the community are depressed. You can imagine how that economy will look like. Most times something leads to depression, something causes depression. You understand? It could be as a result of untreated traumatic experiences that can lead to depression. In this part of the world, when somebody is depressed, we even help the person to go into more depression instead of helping the person to come out of it, which is very bad. And mental illness in Nigeria, in fact Africa, nobody talks about it. We shy away from it. And when you go out to the street there, you see it, you see the signs on everywhere, on people. Even common driving, you see people displaying their mental states.
Well, up next is News in Business with Fidelia Aguncha, so stay tuned.
Corruption not in my country.
Hello? Yeah, I found your wallet in front of a supermarket. Meet me at Apple Junction. Yes, I'll be waiting for you.
Now we find out. Two of us.
Thank you very much, officer. You know, it's surprising that men like you still exist in the police force.
Yes, so...
Oh, yes.
This is just a token of my appreciation.
Oh, no. You don't need to do this. We are only doing our job.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
You're welcome.
Now I know police is really my friend.
Yes.
Friend. Hey. Which came up with this one? I don't understand.
You know your problem. You are greedy. I'm a policeman who is doing his job. All forms of corruption in the force. Not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
You're welcome back. Hello, Fidelia Aguncha.
Hi, Esther.
Okay, so tell us what's the latest in business.
Well, a federal high court in Lagos has fixed December 3rd to hear a suit by MTN Nigeria against the Attorney General of the Federation, challenging the legality of 242 billion naira and $1.3 billion import duties and withholding tax assessments. Now, Justice Chukwujeku Aneke fixed the date for hearing of all pending applications after counsels representing both parties had informed the court of their various applications filed and served. MTN wants a court order vacating the AGF's demand that the sum of 242 billion naira and $1.3 billion be repatriated from the company. The telecoms company is claiming a total sum of 3 billion naira in damages against the defendant, which covers general damages, exemplary damages, and legal costs. The Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership, CACOL, is asking the Bank of Industry to immediately pay the 18 million naira owed to Fredrickson Limited. The fee relates to a 2016 ruling by the Public Complaints Commission. Now, the commission had directed the bank to pay 18 million naira in compensation to Fredrickson for the financial, physical, and other losses which the company incurred while trying to access a 40 million naira loan from the bank. However, to date, the order is yet to be obeyed, and CACOL is threatening further action against the industrial bank.
You will recall the public interest matters involving a Nigerian businessman, Dr. Laibanwo. His company, Fredrickson Company Limited, and the Bank of Industry, BOI, that dates back to April 2010, when the company proposed for a toilet roll project, and they had to approach, that is, the company had to approach the management of the Bank of Industry, BOI, for a 40 million naira loan to finance the project. However, due to the arm-twisting tactics, unjust manipulations, and unethical practices introduced by the lending institutions, along the line, a transaction that was to be consummated within 8 months lasted 8 months latest, dragged on without signs of fulfillment till August 2015, when CACOL, as an anti-corruption organization, became aware of it. I think this frustration came about because Fredison and company could have refused to do what many Nigerian public officials want those who seek their services to do before they get a reprieve. So that is why we think that we should look into the matter, and we are actually going to go beyond the surface. We are going to carry out more in-depth investigation of what could have gone wrong.
The Federal Executive Council has approved 1.2 billion naira for the purchase of specialized vehicles for vessel pilots at a Nigerian port in Lagos. The Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, also told newsmen that the Council also approved 628 million naira for the augmentation of the runway project of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja. He says the augmentation brings the contract sum to 6.8 billion naira, noting that the additional fund is to aid the additional scope of work on the runway.
The Cabinet approved the increase of 628,123,590 naira 6 kobo as a variation on the job, which then will bring the entire contract to 6.5 billion naira. We have what we refer to as pilot quarters. These are vessels that convey pilots. Pilots are those who move the ship or vessels from point A to point B. And currently, we have pilot quarters everywhere, excluding Tinkan and Apapa. And Tinkan and Apapa constitute the western ports. So we came to Cabinet to request that they award the contract to enable us purchase the 2 pilot quarters to serve both Tinkan and Apapa.
Well, let's now see how the stock markets fared today. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the zigzag trend at the NSE continued today as the market recovered from Wednesday's downtrend, edging up by 0.37%. With no more than 37 trading days left, hopes of the NSE closing better than how it started the year is fading. The all-share index began trading this year at 38,264 basis points, but it currently stands at 32,228 basis points. And the market capitalization, on the other hand, started trading for 2018 at 13.62 trillion naira, but today it is at 11.765 trillion naira. Now, it might interest you to know that a total of 47 equities were actively traded today. 19 saw the shares prices rise, and it was a reverse for 15 others. Now, let's look at our gainers chart. We can see right here, Nestle is making this chart for the 3rd straight day, and it is rising by 1.40% to close at 1,450 naira. Meanwhile, renewed interest from investors has landed Presco on the gainers chart, overturning yesterday's loss. Now, Presco is slowly recovering from its year low of 53 naira, with hopes of reaching its 80 naira year high before the close of trading this year. In fact, it has been quite a bad year for the company, as data from its 3rd quarter report ended September shows that its revenue fell from 16.9 billion naira in 2017 to 16.2 billion naira in 2018. And experts say this is as a result of increasing palm oil import into the country. While on the flip side, Mobil took the biggest hit from the loss recorded in the oil and gas sector, declining by 11.7 naira. Red Star Express is the fourth biggest loser for today right here, and it's closing, dropping by 25 kobo and losing its spot on the gainers chart where it closed yesterday. Well, in summary, we can see that 2,639 deals were traded and they were valued 2.67 billion naira. Well, on the top traders chart right here, it is once again dominated by the financial service industry, with Access Bank taking the lead right here. And they sold off most of its shares, that is investors, because its share price actually declined by 0.05 kobo today. Well, going global right now, unlike the NSE, the Dow has appreciated by over 2,000 points compared to its 24,824 basis point start for the year. But generally, it was a good day for investors across the globe, with the Asian, American, and European stock markets closing with gains, as we can see right here. Well, that has been a look at stock activities across the globe, and it's back to Esther.
Well, thank you very much for that update, Fidelia. And we can see from MTN, they are once again in the news since they started this dispute with the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Attorney General of the Federation since August. And then, the South African Reserve Bank actually did say that it will have financial implications on the country. That's a total of about $10 billion in fines from Nigeria. What do you think about that?
Well, Esther, I think that is true, but it's not just South Africa that will be affected by these fines imposed on MTN by the CBN and the Attorney General of the Federation. In fact, Nigeria's Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed has also stated that it would have a negative impact on Nigeria. And also a recent report also says that these fines just might chase away, future investors from the country, because they will feel like they just might be fined after they invest in the country.
Of course, as you see, the MTN was actually supposed to list on the Nigerian Stock Exchange this year, but it has moved plans of that to hopefully next year. So yes, it will have negative impacts, not just in South Africa, but also in Nigeria. Thank you very much for that update, Fidelia. And now we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll bring you more stories on the international scene and in sports. So do stay with us.
In the last 3 years, we have built a multi-purpose center, which is the envy of all in our constituency. And I can tell you that the people who are living there are already enjoying it.
Guy, do you think what this man just said is true? See, I seriously doubt. I'm sure it's one of those their silly lies.
Wait, do you know there's a way to find out if these things he's saying is true or not? This is the Construct app. It gives people like us a sure way to track implementation of constituency projects. It gives valid and verified information on location of projects, amounts allocated, amount funded, the level of job done, and even the profiles of concerned legislators. You and I can post directly on this app.
Are you serious?
This is the go-to app if you want to know how our Commonwealth is being expanded by the government.
Wow. Let's even see if what this man said is true. Show me.
The Construct app is developed by Other Paper Nigeria with support from USAID and is available on both Google Play Store and Apple Store.
And it's true.
Of course, I told you.
We're glad to have you back. Now, at least 12 people have been killed, including a police officer at a country music bar in Thousand Oaks, California. About 200 people were reportedly inside the Borderline Bar and Grill, which was hosting a university student night at the time of the attack. Police have named the suspect as 28-year-old Ian David Long, who had suspected mental health issues. Officials believe the U.S. Marine Corps veteran and local resident took his own life inside the bar. In Malawi, Vice President Saulus Chilima has been omitted from the cabinet list by President Peter Mutharika in a reshuffle. Chilima's name was not on the list of cabinet members released by the Chief Secretary to the government, that's Lloyd Muhara. Earlier this year, the Vice President announced he would run against Mutharika in next year's election after he quit the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, citing alleged corruption in the country. In July, the President's office withdrew Chilima's security clearance, saying he would only have that privilege when performing government duties. And Nigeria has replaced injured striker Odion Igalo with Gala Tesserae forward Henry Onyekuru for an upcoming 2019 African Cup of Nations qualifier against South Africa. China-based Igalo is the leading scorer in the Africa Cup qualifiers with 6 goals, but a hamstring injury which has sidelined him for 5 weeks means Onyekuru comes off the standby list to take his place in the Super Eagles squad. Group E leaders Nigeria face second-placed South Africa on November 17 in Johannesburg. A win will ensure qualification to the 2019 African Cup of Nations. And former Ivory Coast and Chelsea legend DJ Drogba will finally retire from football. The 40-year-old plays for Phoenix Rising in the US, a team he partly owns and has led to the United Soccer League final. The team is bidding for a spot in Major League Soccer, the top division in the United States. Well, that's all we have in the bulletin on the news right now. Thank you very much for joining us on TV360 Nigeria. I am Esther Vasey. Good night.